a crisp military uniform, a face etched with decades of service, and a gaze that could pierce through steel. General Marcus Thorne stood before the massive humming servers of the nation's most secure military base, a knot of unease tightening in his stomach. For 3 days, their digital fortress had been under siege. A fanti enemy, a ghost in the machine, was systematically dismantling their defenses, and every expert they had, every cybersecurity genius on the payroll, had been utterly powerless to stop it. They were blind, deaf, and rapidly approaching a complete system collapse. Desperation had led him here, to a decision that felt more like a fool's gamble than a strategic move. He was waiting for a farm girl. Not code. Not a code name, not a euphemism for some undercover operative. An actual farm girl, scouted from the rural heartlands, whose file was so thin, it was almost transparent. Her name was Alara, and the only remarkable thing about her was an almost mythical reputation for solving complex puzzles. Her neighbors said she could predict rainfall by watching ants and fix any broken engine with a piece of wire and a prayer. It was absurd. But yet, every conventional method had failed. The heavy blast doors hissed open, and in walked a young woman who looked entirely out of place. Alara was dressed in simple denim overalls and sturdy work boots, her hands calloused from labor, not from typing on a keyboard. Her hair was tied back in a messy braid, and her eyes, wide and curious, scanned the cavernous command center, filled with frantic technicians and flashing red alerts. She looked less like a savior and more like a tourist who'd taken a very wrong turn. General Thorne strode towards her, his expression grim. "You're Alara?" he asked, his voice a low growl of skepticism. She simply nodded, her gaze fixed on the main monitor, where lines of corrupted code scrolled endlessly like a digital waterfall of doom. "Our best people have been at this for 72 hours, the general stated, gesturing to the chaos. The enemy's encryption is unlike anything they've ever seen. It's quantum, multi-layered, and it's rewriting our core programming. We're about 60 seconds from a total system blackout. After that, we lose everything. Satellites, drones, our entire defense grid." He pointed to a state-of-the-art terminal. "That's your station. It has the fastest processor on the planet. Whatever you need, just ask." Alara finally tore her eyes from the screen and looked at the general. Her voice was quiet, calm, and carried a faint, rural accent. "I don't need a computer," she said. A wave of disbelief and anger washed over Thorne. Was this a joke? "Young lady, this is not the time for games. The fate of our national security is on the line." Alara didn't flinch. She walked past the general, past the rows of high-tech consoles, and stopped in front of a simple, old-fashioned whiteboard on the far wall. She picked up a dry erase marker. The technicians nearby paused, staring at her as if she'd lost her mind. "The problem isn't the code," she said, almost to herself. "It's the pattern. You're all trying to fight the storm, but you're not listening to the wind. For that." She began to draw. Not code, not equations, but shapes. Spybores, interlocking circles, and strange flowing lines that resembled constellations or the veins on a leaf. Her hand moved with a fluid, mesmerizing grace. The command center, once a symphony of frantic typing and shouted commands, began to fall quiet. Everyone's attention was now fixed on the farm girl and her bizarre drawing. 40 seconds. An operator called out, his voice trembling. Thorne watched, his heart pounding against his ribs. This was insane. His career, his country, was all resting on the scribbles of a girl who'd probably never even used a smartphone. Her patterns were intricate, beautiful, but they were just drawings. What could they possibly do? 30 seconds. Alara's drawing grew more complex. It looked like a map of a system that wasn't digital, but natural. Like the branching of a river delta or the structure of a snowflake. Ah! She paused, tilting her head as if listening to something no one else could hear. "It's a rhythm," she whispered. "A sequence, not binary. It's based on prime numbers, but not in a linear way. It's a spiral." She drew a final, sweeping arc that connected everything. Then she turned to the lead technician. "The core command is a 6-digit prime number, repeated in a Fibonacci sequence across the network's prime nodes. But the sequence isn't based on addition, it's based on spatial rotation. Find the root, prime, input it, and the entire hostile code will try to self-reference, creating an infinite loop that will crash itself, not us, tech." The lead technician stared, dumbfounded. "Spatial ... rotation? That's theoretical mathematics. It's not even applied in coding." 15 seconds, the operator yelled. "Just do it!" Thorn roared, a desperate hope flaring in his chest. "What's the number?" Alara looked at her drawing, her eyes tracing the lines. 743,617, she said without hesitation. "Input it. Now, T." The technician's fingers flew across the keyboard. He typed in the number. For a moment, nothing happened. The red alerts continued to flash, the corrupted code still scrolling. 54.3. And then, it stopped. One by one, the screens flickered. The endless stream of hostile code vanished. The red alerts turned green. A deep, collective sigh of relief swept through the room. It was over. The base, which had been on the precipice of total collapse, went completely silent. Not the silence of death, but the calm, quiet hum of a perfectly functioning system. The general stood frozen, staring at the whiteboard. Then at Alara. She was calmly wiping her hands on her overalls, as if she had just finished a routine chore. 60 seconds. She had done in 60 seconds, with a marker and a whiteboard, what his entire legion of experts couldn't do in 3 days with the world's most advanced technology. He walked slowly towards her, his mind struggling to process what he had just witnessed. How did you know?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Alara offered a small, shy smile. "Back home, when the locusts swarm, you don't fight every single one. You find the queen. You learn her pattern. It says the same thing, really. You just have to know how to look." She capped the marker and placed it back on the tray. "Everything has a pattern. General, you just have to be quiet enough to see it." In the silence of the restored command center, surrounded by the most sophisticated technology ever built, General Thorn finally understood. True genius wasn't always found in a lab coat or behind a computer screen. Sometimes it was found in a pair of overalls, with hands that understood the earth, and a mind that could see the patterns connecting it all.